Generative AI. I mean, the hype is absolutely everywhere, right? But underneath all that noise, a really stark reality is starting to show itself. There's a huge divide separating the few companies that are winning big from, well, pretty much everyone else who's seeing no return at all. So today, we're going to cut through that hype. Using some amazing research from MIT, we're going to give you the playbook that separates the winners from the rest so you can make sure your AI investment actually pays off.
Okay, let's just dive right in with the big scary number. Enterprises have poured somewhere between $30 and $40 billion into generative AI. And yet, an absolutely shocking 95% of organizations are getting zero, and I mean zero, measurable return on that investment. That's not just a bad statistic. That is a systemic, industry-wide problem.
So this begs the most important question of all. What are the winners doing differently? What is it that separates that tiny, successful 5% from everyone else who's stuck in what feels like an endless cycle of pilot projects? Well, figuring that out is what this is all about.
And this whole phenomenon is what the researchers are calling the GenAI Divide. And it really is a clean split. On one side, you have this small group of companies pulling millions of dollars in real value from AI. And on the other side, you have the rest, completely stuck with nothing to show for it on their profit and loss statement.
So, to figure out how to join that winning 5%, we first have to really dig in and understand what the other 95% are doing wrong. And it turns out there are a few very common, very avoidable pitfalls.
And the very first clue is right here. Just look at where the money is going. A massive 70% of all GenAI investment is being funneled into the most visible, the most shiny departments like sales and marketing. This is mistake number one. Leaders are chasing these hype-driven distractions instead of looking for real, measurable value, which, as we're about to see, is often hiding in plain sight somewhere else.
And wow, this quote from a manufacturing COO just nails it, doesn't it? It perfectly illustrates the disconnect. There's this huge gap between what everyone's saying on LinkedIn about transformation and the actual on-the-ground reality where the core processes that run the business haven't changed one bit.
And this leads to what the report calls the pilot-to-production chasm. You can see the proof right here in the numbers. While general-purpose tools get some decent adoption, the heavy-duty, enterprise-grade tools that could actually transform a business, well, they see a catastrophic drop-off. 60% of companies look into them, but only a tiny 5% ever get them into full production.
And here's the fundamental misunderstanding. So many leaders are mistaking individual productivity gains for genuine business transformation. Look, an employee writing an email a little bit faster with ChatGPT is great, but that hasn't actually changed the engine of the business. It's a classic mistake, funding all these scattered pilots that just don't connect to real bottom-line value.
But why is this happening? Why are even the most promising, powerful tools failing to make that leap across the chasm? The answer is the real aha moment of this whole thing. And trust me, it's probably not what you're thinking.
Now, your first instinct might be to blame the technology itself, or say there's a lack of talent, or maybe point to all the legal and regulatory hurdles. But the research is really clear on this. Those aren't the main roadblocks. The real problem is something much more fundamental.
And here it is. The number one barrier is that most GenAI systems are static. They are one-and-done tools. They don't learn from feedback, they don't remember the context from one conversation to the next, and they certainly don't adapt to your specific, unique way of doing business. This is what the report calls the learning gap.
This quote from a corporate lawyer makes the idea so much more real. For brainstorming ideas, yeah, she loves ChatGPT. But for drafting a high-stakes client contract worth millions, no way. Why? Because the tool doesn't retain knowledge. It doesn't learn from her edits. It'll just make the same mistakes over and over again. What she really needs is a system that gets smarter every single time she uses it.
And this data just screams her point from the rooftops. For simple, quick tasks, sure, people are happy to use AI. But for complex, multi-week projects that actually move the needle for the business, they trust a junior human colleague over AI by a staggering 9-to-1 margin. Because the deciding factor isn't just raw intelligence, it's the ability to learn, remember, and adapt over time.
All right, so we've identified the problem. This massive learning gap is keeping almost everyone stuck in neutral. So now, let's flip this around. Let's talk solutions. What does the playbook for that successful 5% actually look like?
Well, the first major decision the winners make is to buy, not build. And the data here is it's incredibly stark. Strategic partnerships are literally twice as likely to succeed as internal do-it-yourself projects. The complexity is just too high for most companies to go it alone.
Okay, so if you're going to buy, how do you buy the right way? The winners all followed this four-part playbook. First, they demand deep customization that actually fits their unique processes. Second, they measure success based on real business outcomes, not some abstract tech score. Third, and this is so important, they empower their frontline managers, the people actually doing the work, to lead the rollout. And finally, they treat their vendors like true partners, not just software salespeople.
And how do you empower those frontline managers? You start by recognizing the shadow AI economy that's already running inside your company. A full 90% of your employees are already using personal AI tools for their work. These people are your hidden champions, your prosumers. They know what works. You have to learn from them and build on that organic success.
And what are these winning buyers actually demanding from their partners? Well, it maps directly back to solving that learning gap we talked about. 2/3 of executives are demanding systems that learn from feedback and that retain context. They want that deep workflow customization. They are explicitly buying solutions to bridge that exact gap.
And this is where it all pays off. Remember how 70% of investment was flowing into sales and marketing? The winners are finding the real, multi-million-dollar ROI in the quote-unquote boring back-office functions. We're talking about things like eliminating business process outsourcing contracts, slashing agency spend, and automating tedious risk checks. This is the tangible, unglamorous business value that leaders should be laser-focused on.
So, that's the playbook for winning today. But, this game is already changing, and the choices you make right now are going to define your competitive position for years to come.
The next big evolution is something called the agentic web. This is a future where these learning-capable AI systems we're talking about become autonomous agents that can actually coordinate with each other to get complex tasks done. The systems that the 5% are building today, those are the foundations for competing in this new world.
And this brings a real sense of urgency to the whole thing. The report suggests there's about an 18-month window for companies to choose and lock in their core AI partners. Because once a system has started learning your data and your workflows, the cost of switching becomes enormous. The time to make a disciplined, strategic choice is right now.
So that brings us to the final, critical question that I want to leave you with. Forget all the hype for a second and just look inside your own organization. What's that invisible work, especially in those overlooked back-office functions, that could be completely transformed by an AI that doesn't just generate content, but one that truly learns, adapts, and remembers? Because that, almost certainly, is where your biggest AI opportunity is hiding.